On this channel, we spend most of our time telling you about how great New Jersey is. We've covered the best downtowns, the beautiful nature, secret beaches, and the amazing food. Every week, we make the case that this is the most underrated state in America. And then there's this video. Because unfortunately, we are not beating all of the allegations against us. The allegations have physical evidence, federal documentation, and a mailing address. New Jersey has 115 active Superfund sites on the Environmental Protection Agency's National Priorities list, the most in the country. Second place is California at 97, a state that is literally 19 times bigger than Jersey in total land area. We're winning most contaminated state in America by roughly 20 points, an absolute blowout margin. If illegal dumping were a sport, New Jersey would be called a dynasty. And this is a state you can drive across in 2 hours. So here are 9 of the most toxic places in New Jersey, and I mean literally, and the EPA has a file on you since. Some of these you drive past every week. One of them you have personally tailgated next to. First up, the American Cyanamid site in Bridgewater. From 1915 to 1999, 84 straight years, American Cyanamid ran chemical and pharmaceutical manufacturing on 435 acres and left behind 27 waste disposal impoundments. Impoundment is the industry term for pond, and pond is the industry term for a hole we dumped toxic waste into and walked away from. The two biggest ones hold close to 900,000 tons of waste. Not gallons, tons. The groundwater underneath carries heavy metals and volatile organics, including benzene and xylene, which are the two ingredients you'd pick if you were trying to build a lawsuit. Then in 2011, Hurricane Irene put 200 million gallons of floodwater on the property, and it went right over the berms holding those impoundments in. So the containment system for the worst chemical waste in Somerset County got tested by an actual hurricane, and we've all quietly agreed not to discuss the results. Right next door, the Somerset Patriots play at TD Bank Ballpark. Professional baseball, fireworks night, a t-shirt cannon, all a short walk from 900,000 tons of chemical waste in a hole. And a pump and treat system is still run continuously there, meaning a machine is running right now whose only job is keeping the groundwater under that site out of the Raritan. Next up, we're near Carlstadt and Woodridge in Bergen County at the Ventron-Velsicol site, better known as Berry's Creek. Starting in 1929, a mercury processing plant went up on 40 acres in the Meadowlands and ran until 1960. The entire time, untreated mercury waste went straight into the creek. The property changed hands in 1960, and the dumping kept going until 1974, because why fix what's working? Berry's Creek now carries a compound called methyl mercury, which climbs the food chain and stays there, plus PCBs and chromium, at levels the EPA calls an unacceptable risk to people and wildlife. Samples taken from the creek literally contain the highest levels of methyl mercury ever recorded in any freshwater sediment on planet Earth. The main exposure route for humans is eating fish and crabs out of it, which means a federal agency had to put in writing, officially, please stop crabbing here. The study area covers 6 miles of creek and 800 acres of wetlands. Berry's Creek runs right past MetLife Stadium. 80,000 people park out there on a Sunday, drink warm beer out of a Tahoe, scream at a football team that has personally wronged them, and drive home. And almost none of them know the water behind that lot is one of the most mercury-contaminated waterways on Earth. Jets fans have spent 30 years complaining about the wrong toxic thing in East Rutherford. Cleanup efforts of the site have been feeble. Contamination started in 1929. It is currently 2026, and at some point, the lack of progress just becomes the standard. Next, in South Plainfield is the Cornell-Dubilier electronics site. From 1936 to 1962, an electronics plant ran on 26 acres making capacitors, and the waste handling was, to use the technical term, terrible. Transformer oils loaded with PCBs, aka toxic man-made chemicals, got released into the soil, sediment, and groundwater, and it did not stay on the property. It moved into adjacent residential, commercial, and municipal properties. From there, it got into the nearby Bound Brook and connecting waterways because PCBs find a waterway the way a seagull finds an unattended sandwich. Total estimated cleanup so far, $152 million from a property spanning only 26 acres. That's a lot of damage for a lot that would have sold in 1962 for the price of a used Buick. And although the original site has changed ownership and is in use, the cleanup of the local waterways is still happening. EPA started a new operation disposing of PCB-contaminated soil and sediment along the Bound Brook in spring of 2026, with work extending downstream as far as Newmarket Pond in Piscataway. So if you see trucks and guys in white Tyvek suits taping off the creek behind the ball fields, that's your neighborhood's turn, 64 years after the plant closed. Next, Chambers Works in Pennsville and Carney's Point, 1,455 acres on the Delaware River, and one of the most historically significant industrial sites in the country, which is a polite way of saying the soil is more radioactive than Chernobyl. This is where DuPont accidentally discovered Teflon. A researcher messing with refrigerants opened a cylinder, found a weird white waxy solid inside, and that's your non-stick pan. Congratulations, South Jersey! You invented the thing that made eggs easier to cook and put a little souvenir in the bloodstream of every man, woman, and child on the planet. The state's own description is that the site is saturated with semi-volatile organics, metals, pesticides, PCBs, and PFAs. In 2025, DuPont settled with New Jersey for a value north of $2 billion, the largest environmental settlement ever reached by a single U.S. state. Then, in July of 2026, a federal settlement added roughly $280 million toward treated or alternative drinking water for nearby residents, which tells you exactly what that first $2 billion did and didn't fix. And here's the part that should concern you most. This site isn't even on the Superfund list at all. It's regulated under a different federal program. One of the most contaminated pieces of ground in the state doesn't even count toward that 115. And the plant is still operating to this day. Next up, Lipari Landfill in Pittman and Mantua. At one point, this 6-acre pit was ranked the single worst toxic dump in the United States of America. Number 1, out of every contaminated site in a country with a 200-year head start on industrial waste, South Jersey took the crown and nobody down there has brought it up since. Into that pit went 155 different carcinogens, plus heavy metals, pesticide residue, and benzene. Cleanup ran about $300 million, roughly $50 million an acre. And downstream sits Alcyon Lake, where kids swam. The entire time that pit was ranked the worst in America, families a short walk away were treating that water like a swimming pool, and nobody had told them anything different. Current status is actually good news. Lipari came off the Superfund list in October of 2024, and it's green space now. 40 years and $300 million later, the worst toxic dump in America is a field with grass on it, which is the most New Jersey redemption arc available. We don't fix things fast, we fix them eventually and then never speak of it again. Next, federal creosote in Manville. From 1911 to 1956, a coal tar wood treatment facility ran here, soaking railroad ties in creosote. The town of Manville is actually named after Johns Manville, an asbestos company, which tells you everything you need to know about Manville's relationship with industrial chemistry. In the 1960s, a developer bought the land and built a neighborhood on top of it. The Claremont section, 35 acres, 137 single-family homes with the rustic mall on the remaining 15. Happy families with Christmas lights on their homes sitting directly on a former coal tar plant. And the sales brochure did not mention it because nobody involved considered it a problem worth raising. Nobody knew for 30 years. Then in 1996, a homeowner went downstairs to check his sump pump and found tar-like material coming out of it. That's how this surfaced. A guy in a basement in Somerset County looking at his sump pump going, "That's not water." The EPA permanently relocated 23 property owners and demolished 18 homes. Houses people saved for, bought, and raised kids in, then got permanently removed from because the ground underneath was never fit to hold a house. The rustic mall is gone too. A large empty lot in the center of town still sits there today. If you've ever wondered why people in this state treat developers with suspicion as the baseline, just take a look at Manville. Next, we're in Newark at the Diamond Alkali site. This is the plant where they made Agent Orange, the powerful chemical herbicide used in the Vietnam War. The facility on Lister Avenue in Newark produced around 700,000 gallons of the stuff, and the process sent dioxin into the Passaic River, one of the most toxic compounds human beings have ever produced. The waste from pesticide production got so far out of hand that it coated the streets around the plant, and in the 1980s that triggered a full emergency response. And the Superfund site here doesn't just include the old plant. It legally includes a full 17-mile stretch known as the Lower Passaic River Study Area. They had to designate damn near the entire river. Today, the plant site sits sealed under a containment structure on the riverbank. That's the remedy. Cap it, monitor it, and hope. And the fishing advisories are still in force, which matters because there are some wild people out there who fish the Passaic River regularly. And eating fish out of that river is like eating something you found on the bathroom floor at Newark Penn Station. Newark takes an absurd amount of abuse from people who have never set foot in it. This is the one thing nobody ever brings up, and it's the only shot that would have been fair. Next up, the Ringwood Mines in Passaic County. Between 1965 and 1974, Ford dumped hundreds of thousands of gallons of paint sludge and solvents into abandoned mine shafts up in the Ramapo Mountains. There's something almost impressive about the confidence of it, the executive logic of looking at a pre-installed hole in the earth and deciding it must be there for you to dump your sludge. The land they did it on is where the Ramapo Lenape Turtle Clan lived. This wasn't an empty industrial parcel out by an interchange. This was a beautiful mountain landscape with a community. And for 9 straight years, Ford treated the ground underneath it as free disposal capacity. What makes Ringwood unique is it got cleaned up and delisted by the EPA in 1994. Then in 2006, it went right back onto the Superfund list because the EPA found Ford had underreported how much contamination was actually down there. It's the only site in the United States to be listed twice. In a country with 1,400 Superfund sites, exactly one had to be convicted twice, and it's in Passaic County. Today, the site covers about 500 acres, mine shafts, an inactive landfill, a recycling center, the borough garage, and roughly 50 private homes. People live inside the site boundary, not near it or across the street from it, but inside the line the EPA drew on a map. There's a mailman driving through a Superfund site 5 days a week, and what exactly would you even say to him? Finally, we're at Ciba-Geigy and Reich Farm in Toms River. 2 Superfund sites working in tandem, which is the only cooperation this story has to offer. Ciba-Geigy ran a 1,400-acre dye manufacturing plant that discharged waste into the Toms River and into unlined pits in the ground, meaning they dug a hole, poured chemicals into it, and considered the matter professionally resolved. Then completely separately, a trucker dumped thousands of drums of Union Carbide waste on a former egg farm across town, the Reich Farm. And the plume from those drums moved through the groundwater until it reached the township's drinking water wells. Not a creek or a marsh or a drainage ditch, but the wells that filled the glasses in people's kitchens. The New Jersey Department of Health investigated and found a statistically significant elevation in childhood cancers in the township. In December of 2001, 69 families settled with the two chemical companies and the water utility. Dan Fagan wrote a book about it and won the Pulitzer Prize in 2014, which is how a town in Ocean County became a national case study in what industry does when nobody's checking, and how long a community has to fight before anyone with a title admits it. Groundwater treatment has run continuously since 1992. 34 straight years of machinery cleaning the water under a town. And BASF, which owns the property today, has agreed to convert most of it into a 1,000-acre public park. So the biggest dye plant in the state becomes the biggest park in the county, which is either a genuine act of repair or the most expensively landscaped apology in American history. And honestly, it's probably both. So that's the list. We're still the garden state. We just had to build the garden on top of something first. Half of you are going to look up your zip code the second this ends, and I want to hear how that goes.